Distinguished gentlelady from the District of Columbia, Ms. Norton, for your 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for this important hearing. Last month, President Biden announced a blanket pardon for everyone with conviction for simple marijuana possession under federal and District of Columbia law. This is a very welcome announcement. But I would be remiss if I did not use this opportunity to once again speak about the unique and undemocratic position of the District of Columbia regarding both marijuana and clemency. Under current law, there is an appropriations rider that prohibits the District of Columbia from spending its local funds on commercializing recreational marijuana. Recreational marijuana is legal in DC, but Congress prohibits DC from taxing and regulating the sale. Prohibiting DC from creating a marijuana regulatory regime, just like the states and territories can do, is a violation of home rule and is harmful. Another violation of DC home rule is that the president exercises authority to grant clemency for DC crimes. Like the states and territories, DC should have the authority to grant clemency for its own crimes. I'm grateful that last month, this committee reported out my District of Columbia Home Rule Expansion Act, which would, among other things, give DC the exclusive authority to grant clemency for DC crimes. Ms. Haynes, as someone who has been directly impacted by the federal criminalization of marijuana, I would like to ask about your reaction to President Biden's pardons. What is the effect of the announcement for people who were previously convicted? How will it change their lives?
Thank you for your question, Congresswoman. I think pretty much like everyone that has talked about President Biden's executive action last month, it was a great first step, but I definitely feel that more needs to be done. It will be extremely impactful for those individuals who will be able to reap the benefits of this. They do have a pardon, but as it was explained, the difference between a pardon and an expungement. So we do need to go a little bit further and to expunge those convictions as well too, but it will open up some doors for people that have been closed simply because of all of the collateral consequences that those of us who do have marijuana convictions are subjected to. And again, and like I said, I would just, urge the president, urge Congress to go further because this was a very limited number of people that are impacted. And there are so many others like myself and those that are still incarcerated that do have, felonies on our record that are marijuana related. And we deserve to have the harm reduced to us as well as those that have simple possession misdemeanor marijuana offenses.
Thank you. Mr. Armentano, while President Biden's pardons were an important step forward, there are remaining issues that would be solved by a full deschedulization of marijuana, as last witness has just spoken, and expungement of past convictions for all. For example, under the blanket pardon, anyone who was not a citizen or permanent resident at the time of their conviction was exempted. So Mr. Armentano, what are your thoughts on this exemption?
Like others, I do want to praise the president for taking the action that he took. I thought it was an incredibly powerful statement to have the arguably most powerful elected official in this country, if not the world, to call out marijuana prohibition as a 50-year failure. Look, at the end of the day, as has been said by others, there's been over 29 million Americans arrested for marijuana-related violations in this country. The overwhelming majority of those arrests occurred at the state and local level. The president does not have the power to pardon or expunge those records. That needs to be done at the state level, and I'm very glad to see that now almost 24 states have enacted specific legislation at that state level to facilitate that expungement process, and that about 2 million Americans have had those records expunged under that process. We think there would be even more states taking these opportunities if marijuana was descheduled federally, and if there was legislation enacted to provide better funding and to facilitate that process at the state level. Ultimately, that's what needs to happen to impact the overwhelming or the most number of Americans who are suffering from the stigma of a criminal conviction.
Thank you. My time has expired.